Hey, everybody. Ask me anything. Submit questions below, sign up, subscribe, be a part of the conversation. I love these days. I really do. Your questions are great. Sue writes, I am not sure if you remember me, but my name is, I got married to, and you were gracious enough to attend our wedding back in September 1997. I did. I remember you, Sue and Andy, very fondly. I remember you offering to make our wedding cake, and I thought that was way too much, so I declined, but I always tell people that story. You really should have let me. You gave us a set of stemless martini glasses, which we still use today. You also bought a Vizsla from us, Bella. That was my, the pride and joy of my life. I was young. I had just gotten sober a couple years earlier. I sobered up in 1992. I think I got Bella from Andy and Sue like 2 years after I sobered up. That dog got me and kept me sober in so many ways. Oh my Lord, I loved that dog. Named not for the Italian word for beautiful, but for Bella Abzug, the 1970s congresswoman from the Upper West Side of New York, because Bella Abzug wore these huge hats and Bella, my dog, had these huge ears. Question for you, what set of spices do you recommend for the home cook? Well, my Badia spices, first and foremost. Great blends, all-purpose, you can use them for everything. And she acknowledges that. But I'm thinking about a nice set to always have on hand. What about life expectance of spices? I know some are limited more than others. Yeah, I'm not really big on, first of all, don't waste your money on the $15 a bottle stuff that's at the supermarket. There is that one brand that charges a fortune, but they're indistinguishable except in the size of the flake and all of the leaf, etc., from the super cheap supermarket brands in the little red or green containers, little cardboard ones. And all of those are relatively old. Badia is an amazing company. You can't go wrong with their stuff, and the price is really great. What I like to do is buy spices for the things that I like to cook. So if you cook Italian food, you're going to want to have a really, really good dried Sicilian oregano, right? Something like that. If you love to cook, North African food, you're going to want to have berbere and turmeric and coriander and all the spices of the souk. If you love to bake, you're going to want to have, clove and nutmeg, but you should get whole nutmeg and whole clove to crush it yourself. A lot of it has to do with the age of the spice, and I date every jar or container that comes into my house. So that way, after about a year, if you haven't used it, use it up. And then after a year and a couple months, swap it out. Karen writes, other than a classic rock tune that brings you back to college years, what sound transports you to a different time in your life? It's sometimes it's really odd. You'll hear the buzzing of a certain kind of fish line and you go back to a time with your dad, stuff like that. Crashing of waves anywhere brings me back to the beaches of East Hampton in my early childhood. But more than that, it's smells. Smells have a much more transportive power, and there's a lot more memory stored in smells. So you'll smell something like rubber on a tire somewhere, or something, an off smell in a car that's like burning rubber, or rubber in the hot sun. Always reminds me of those old inflatable red and blue rafts that my best friend and I used to ride when we were little kids, stuff like that. The smell of anything cooking transports me back to whole other times and places in my life instantaneously, much more than sounds do. Curtis says, I'm watching the new Iron Chef season and loving it. Thank you, Curtis. Do the competing chefs get to taste their competitors' dishes off camera? Only if they cheat. But often, no, I'm just kidding. Oftentimes the competing chefs will have extra product on hand. Usually it's not the fully dressed plate, but it's the primary ingredients in a sauce or some element of it that they'll share with each other. how many episodes are filmed per day? We film one. How in the world can you eat so much food? You don't eat breakfast, you don't eat lunch, you don't eat dinner. You just eat during the day on the set, and it is plenty. And then at judges' table, you're eating 2 5-course meals back to back, so you really have to pace yourself. And one of the nice things about the 5-course tasting menu that the chefs make is that by its very nature, they're all smaller. And as you get to some of the larger formats, you just take a bite or two. The problem becomes, I mean, I remember this happening with, I think it was the very first episode we shot, was not the first one that aired, but I think the first one that we shot, if memory serves me correctly, was the medieval or maybe it was the second day. And Curtis first day, the street food, and he did that curry. Oh my God. I mean, I wolfed that down, and there was a fairly big portion of it. His game pie too was great. Dominique Cren's food is very light, very ethereal. Portions are very small. Tastes are very small. She's used to doing lengthy multi-course tasting menus, and so she cooks that way. And so that's great as a judge because you can eat it all and not get filled up. But yeah, Curtis's food is fantastic. Curtis Stone, his food is fantastic and speaks to me. He's a globalist when it comes to cooking, and so am I. Anyway, that's AMA for this week. Love you all. More questions. Sign up, subscribe, push it to your friends, help us keep food in the fridge and the lights on. See you next time.